So looking at the acronym, the N in the upper right quadrant is the paleo nutrition. We feel that this is probably the single best diet. It's really the original human diet. As you will see, you will be eating from two rather than four of the food groups. The milk and dairy and grains are largely excluded from the paleo diet. Why? Mostly because we have been evolving as humans for probably more than 5 million years, and grains only were planted in the Nile Valley approximately 10,000 years ago, and animal husbandry and cows even more recently, probably about 7 or 8,000 years ago. In other words, our genes are not used to processing dairy and grains. Many of the food problems that we see today, lactose intolerance, gluten sensitivities, etc., are a result of this genetic mismatch with these more recent foods. Many autoimmune diseases have been shown, in fact, to be related to certain protein fragments from casein milk and causing these sensitivities and autoimmune diseases. The paleo diet is also an anabolic diet. It builds you up. As you know, once you get into your 20s, you are essentially entering catabolism, where your body is breaking down. So the paleo diet is an anabolic diet. We also encourage certain nutrients and supplements, particularly marine plasma, alkaline water, as the interior milieu of the body is as important as the exterior milieu. And that is an excellent way with the paleo diet and weight loss. This will rapidly decrease insulin and therefore inflammation. The next letter, the T, is for toxin reduction. We are all living in an increasingly polluted world. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, many contaminants which again interfere in the cellular functioning and inhibits weight loss, and therefore maintains a smoldering, silent, inflammatory state throughout the body. Part of what we do at the Institute is to give you certain tools and techniques and supplements to reduce this toxic burden in the body. In addition, we do have the two retreats, one at Turnberry in Las Vegas and the other in Martha's Vineyard, where if the toxicity of the individual is such that it warrants either a 7 or 14 or 21 day more intensive detoxification, we can certainly help you arrange that in either place. The exercise, the E, is also important. We now know that exercise helps reduce inflammation in a number of ways. Firstly, exercises usually helps reduce, again, the weight and therefore inflammation, but it also increases insulin sensitivity so that you're more easily able to reduce your sugar and therefore insulin and inflammation. In addition, exercise enhances certain hormones, testosterone and others, that can also help increase the peripheral utilization of glucose, again lowering your insulin and inflammatory processes throughout the body. The G, the graded aesthetic enhancement, we encourage you to use the Nick Perricone products, which are very much related again to supplements as well as different cosmeceuticals that again are very much focused on increasing blood flow in the skin, our largest organ, as well as the nutrients that again will decrease the inflammation in the endothelial lining of our blood vessels. R is for the replacement of hormones. Clearly, testosterone, DHEA, as well as a number of the other hormones, including thyroid, without which is nearly impossible for a person to lose weight. As we have pointed out to you, and you have had done at the Institute, we use a ThyroFlex machine to measure a person's thyroid activity. We know now, after many years and after Dr. Broder Barnes, that the T3, T4, and TSH that are usually measured in most physicians' offices are a very poor reflection of the thyroid status of the individual. We encourage physicians to use the ThyroFlex, and particularly the relationship as well between the adrenal gland, the iodine, and also the thyroid hormone. An interesting but fairly complex relationship. Finally, the two remaining letters of the acronym, advanced supplementation. Omega-3s are probably the second most important way of lowering a person's inflammation. Fish oil, as many of you know, was really discovered, I suppose, in about the late 70s when Danish researchers went to Greenland to the Inuit Eskimos, since they had a very, very low incidence of, in fact, no heart disease for more than 20 years. And researchers found that this was primarily due to the Eskimos eating a very high omega-3 fish-laden diet. It's important to point out that in our Paleolithic diet of our ancestors, it's interesting that the ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s was approximately 1:1. And as you may remember, the omega-3s are anti-inflammatory, whereas the omega-6s are pro-inflammatory. What happens today is that we have nearly 20 times as much omega-6s as omega-3s. Therefore, there is no reason for you to be taking omega-6s. You can certainly take omega-9s, omega-5s, but no omega-6s, because omega-6s, particularly the arachidonic acid, is pro-inflammatory. From the sheet, you can see the tremendous benefits of omega-3s. In fact, if you go to PubMed, there are now more than 20,000 articles alone on omega-3 fish oils. As you can see from the diagram, omega-3s prevent arrhythmias, they prevent rupturing of plaques in the arteries. There's a large decreased risk of heart disease as well as Alzheimer's disease. It prevents Crohn's disease, colon, prostate cancer. It lowers triglycerides and VLDL. It inhibits markedly development of spread of breast cancer, helps autoimmune disease. In large enough doses, it's tremendously effective as an anti-inflammatory for certain arthritides, and can also help reduce blood pressure, as well as helping to stimulate the nitric oxide from the endothelium. Nitric oxide helps the arteries and coronary arteries, as well as others, vasodilate, so that there's more healthy, rich oxygen blood flow to the tissues. We really encourage the use of adequate concentrations of clean fish oil. We like to use products which are pharmaceutical grade products, which means that pesticides and dioxins and PCBs have been removed, but even more importantly, there's usually less than 10 parts per billion of mercury. The last thing you want to do is to take fish oil that you're putting in large amounts of mercury. As you know, most fish in the world now are contaminated, and it is important to use pharmaceutical grade fish oil. In addition, the other supplements, certain herbs such as turmeric, boswellia, there are a number of other supplements including probiotics and enzymes and certain antioxidants that are all very valuable in reducing inflammation. One antioxidant product, Protandim, has been shown in several clinical studies to be a very effective antioxidant and free radical scavenger, often scavenging more than 1 million free radicals per minute. Finally, the lifelong learning section, mind-body connection has been increasingly recognized as being vital for our health and well-being. A stressful state can oxidize LDL just as easily as trans fats can. And it's essential that certain techniques, meditative, contemplative techniques, can be utilized to, again, help control silent inflammation. The lifelong mind-body section really also opens up the other three quadrants. As you can see from the therapeutic integral health approach, the upper left quadrant, individuation, the lower left quadrant, the integration of the structures of consciousness, as well as the lower right quadrant, which is the information systems mastery. All three other quadrants are also important in the overall treatment of silent inflammation, so that we can optimize the health and well-being of the individual through the integration of all four quadrants. Unfortunately, as we pointed out in the introduction to the integral health model, most modern medicine only looks at the upper right quadrant and leaves out the other three important quadrants. I hope this little segment has reinforced some of the aspects of how important it is to understand the silent inflammation, and more importantly, how to recognize it and reduce it. We will, as part of step 3 of the integral approach, we will be monitoring these inflammatory markers over the years to be sure that we can bring all of these inflammatory markers to the lowest possible levels. We know by doing that we are preventing and reversing vascular disease, which again is our core competency. Together with the EBCT studies at our heart check centers with our partners, these continue to really provide you the state-of-the-art markers for silent inflammation. Thanks very much.